I'm Amy Linker and I played Lauren Hutchinson. When I did Square Pegs, a lot of people were tuned in and I suddenly became known as a teenage geek or nerd. It was life-altering in a lot of ways. I got to see the other side of being in television. I was always wanting to work in television, but actually acting in it gave me a lot deeper perspective of what it means to be an actor in television. First of all, television exposes a person so much that, there is no turning back. Once you've had that exposure, I think you just, you can't go back to being anonymous completely after that. Did I miss out on my childhood? Well, I had a lot of my childhood before I was on national network television. I definitely missed out on some things in high school. I probably didn't notice it at the time so much. I did on some level, but looking back on it now, I didn't go to parties because I didn't know there were parties because I was busy on the set for weeks at a time. So I don't even know what parties I missed. But I definitely missed certain natural experiences that people have in high school. But then, a lot of people have experiences in high school that aren't ideal, which apparently is what we were making the show about. And ironically, I didn't have that ideal high school experience either. The good thing is, I realized after playing a high school teenager that it is such a universal thing that people can say they didn't love high school. I think that's more common than not, actually. I think more people say, I really thought high school was terrible, or it stank, or it sucked, or whatever. But I think that that's why it is such a popular show, because a lot of people could relate to feeling awkward. It's a very awkward time of life to be a teenager. And we didn't even deal with really so much acne and the physical changes, but it's just being a teenager can be kind of awkward. I was a square peg in high school. I was a square peg before high school, and I played a square peg on television. So, and I think the difference now is that I heard that the difference between a dork and a geek is that a geek, they're both nerds, but a geek doesn't care if they're not cool, but a dork does. And I would say that in high school I was a dork, but now I'm a geek. First year I lived across the street and I would get a ride home, and this is true, I used to get a ride home sometimes from Crispin Glover because I had a crush on him. So in that way I was kind of like my character Lauren. I had a crush on a senior when I was a sophomore. And, I think Crispin is a little bit of a square peg too. I used to ask him to give me a ride home from school, which he did. And I only lived literally across the street. He would drive me out of the parking lot and around the block just because I liked him, and he would do that for me. And he was at my Sweet 16 with Michael J. Fox and Sarah and Jamie and a whole bunch of other actors, people that ended up being on television like David Schwimmer and Johnny Silverman. Before I had the role of Lauren, I used to do weird things like Lauren, and in junior high school I used to wear shoelaces and my hair as ribbons and wear my dad's jackets, which I also incorporated into the character. Big daddy jackets, the big old wool jackets. And we used to wear pins back in the 80s, little ceramic pins, and I used to get them in the Village in New York, and so we added that to the character. When I went to school, I had to overcome that, okay, now people are watching me on TV, they think I'm a nerd. Now I have to come to school and look cool because this is really school. And but I don't think I realized how much I had to overcome because of the impression that I was making on television. And to be honest with you, I really wasn't the coolest kid at Beverly. I didn't have the wardrobe. I didn't know who the big designers were. Didn't have the finances really to dress that, hoity-toity. But we used to go to Camp Beverly Hills, and back in the 80s, stripes were really in, and very coordinated colors. But I became a lot more fashion conscious and tried to look good. I won an award in 2007 for the most beautiful braces, and I got up and I accepted the award in front of casts of Roots, the cast of Taxi, the cast of the Brady Bunch, which was a complete dream come true for me to be with those people. Never expecting in my life to have an award presented to me in front of those actors. And ironically, the award was for the most beautiful braces. So that, I practically could have cried on stage just at that moment. But I tried to keep my cool, and basically I just, I forgot to mention that the braces were fake. which in the end, I don't know if really I want people to know that. But I do have a little guilt about it because I didn't go through the pain that people go through when they have braces. But when I was a kid, I always wanted to have braces. I always thought they were cool. And even cooler than braces were retainers. To this day, I still think retainers are cool. Working with Sarah was like, let's say, I don't know how to describe it. Okay, Sarah and I were very close at some points during this show. We were very close. I felt very connected to her, and we even spent time together off the set. Somewhere in my house I have a cassette tape that we made when she ended up spending the weekend at my house. I think her parents went out of town, and we were very giddy and silly. And most of the time I think we just cracked each other up and were fun. You know, we had fun improvising, and we had one scene that I will never forget. Most of the time we were very professional, but this one day we had a scene where we walked into a shot and we had sneakers that had a food prop on them, which was actually supposed to be tuna surprise. It was made of tuna, I think, and macaroni, you know, the kind of mayonnaise consistency. And every time we walked into the shot, we turned over the shoes, part of the scene, to examine the footprints, and the tuna surprise made a very distinctive plop plop sound on the floor, and we just cracked up laughing. We couldn't stop, and we did about 26 takes. I don't know how many takes. We thought it was really funny. We even thought it was funny that we kept cracking up, so that just made us laugh more. But I think we probably annoyed the filmmakers, the grown-ups, because we weren't grown-ups, we were just kids. And that show was a big break for both of us. I do want to say that, you know, Sarah and I definitely bonded when we did some press junkets, and we went through this experience where we're in limousines, you know, flying around the country, meeting executives, and neither of us, you know, and meeting television stars, meeting Gregory Peck, meeting a lot of people, and not ever having done that before, you know, for both of us, it was a new experience. And I think we bonded because of that. Oh my God, K-Rock was so cool in the 80s. Not to say it's not cool now, but that was the station to listen to in the 80s in Los Angeles. And I loved Joe Jackson and Elvis Costello and all the new wave, and Richard Blade and the Police. But Richard Blade opened us all up to that kind of music. Richard Blade from England. And ironically, Richard Blade came to My Sweet 16, which I thought was really cool. After My Sweet 16, I think, is when I opened up my gifts and my cards and noticed that he had brought the lead singer of Berlin to My Sweet 16, Terry Nunn. And I don't know if I realized it when I met her, who she was. She sang the song Riding on the Metro, right? It was very exciting to have Devo on our set. They were very Devo-ish. I don't know how to describe them. They were very Devo. They were Devo. I felt like it was a party that I had an early curfew and I had to leave the party early. That's kind of how I felt. Like there was a party and, you know, I was too young to stay late. I had to go home. That's kind of, it just was premature. Looking back on it though, I mean, my life would have changed even more had it gone on for longer. I would have liked to see my character grow out of the braces and develop into a lovely young woman. That would have been nice, you know. I think they had a lot of potential, so of course I was sad. I mean, you know, I wasn't, but you know, I understand the nature of acting, and you don't always get a long run in a television show. I'll say when I was young and I had to act, nobody could have stopped me. I was one of those kids that, you know, I just knew from a young age that I had to do it. And I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I was inspired by Kristy McNichol. And believe me, I had no idea it was ever really going to happen for me, but I couldn't imagine it not happening. And now that I've become more mature and grown out of childhood, I believe that children should have a childhood and stay in school and experience their youth as long as they can, and not push that, becoming a grown-up and going to work. There's time for that. And I definitely think you miss out. I think people miss out when they grow up too fast. So I would say, you know, I would like to have a long talk with anyone who's thinking about becoming an actor before they're 18. You can call me. I'll give you my MySpace email. I think Sarah and I were having a bad week when we filmed the scene where we actually did And I don't know if it was her method acting or mine or what exactly was going on, but our characters had a falling out when my character breaks her leg. Of course, I loved that because I didn't break my leg in real life. I got to get the cast and all the attention, and her character, is jealous because I'm really taking advantage of the fact that people are helping me and paying attention to me. So I remember kind of being angry at her for some reason, and I don't know what it was, but there was a scene where I just threw the milk at her, which wasn't planned. It was totally spontaneous, and they kept it in. And that's not, nobody knows that, but I don't even know if Sarah knows that. But Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm not mad at you anymore. Forgive me. But I remember that scene. I was just mad. I went, ugh, like that with the milk. They kept it in. There's actually one shot in one episode where I'm not wearing my braces. And I noticed that one time watching the show. I said, oh my gosh, they didn't even check. I didn't have my braces. And all of a sudden, for one scene, I smile, no braces. That's a good trivia question. There was a scene where I have to cry at the end of the Christmas scene. And Terry Hughes, who directed Monty Python, a nice British gentleman, directed me in that scene. And apparently, my mother used to tell me that I used to get really serious about my acting in square pegs, and he would say, Amy, this is not Shakespeare. And one time I had to cry in a scene where I'm dressed as Santa Claus. As if that wasn't humiliating enough. On top of having padding and fake braces, I'm dressed as Santa Claus and I have to cry. And it was the end of the night. I think we were about to all go on hiatus. We were cold, it was late, everybody's tired, and I couldn't cry. And Terry Hughes was behind the camera and getting really, really angry at me. And so what did he do to make me cry? He yelled at me. Amy, we've got to get the scene done now. Oh my God. I was so upset. I started crying. And I didn't realize that's what directors do with children. When a child can't cry, you can just scare the heck out of them. Just yell at them. And he got me to cry. It was brilliant. We used to think it was really a drag that we had to go to Norwalk, California. That was a little bit of a downside, but when you get there in the morning, I liked it. I could be dressed normally, no makeup on, have some breakfast, had to cook there, and then go to the makeup room, get our makeup done for hours. We would just chat. It was nice and cozy in the makeup room. We talked to all the hair and makeup people, and eventually we ended up asking for more eyeshadow and more blush, and I think that could be why we were canceled. And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about that. We became too glamorous. We weren't pegs anymore. We got a little too vain. And one last thing was just that my hair, I was pretty proud of the fact that I always came up with these creative hairdos with the hair people. And one of the ones that I especially love is the Devo one, where I had my hair twisted on the top of my head and it was a curl like that. It looks so bizarre. But I highly recommend that video. Not that hairstyle, but definitely watch that episode where I am Devo. Sarah and I used to joke around a lot, and I always used to say, just kidding, just kidding. And Sarah used to say, only joking, only joking. I don't know why we did that, but we were always joking, and that was our little thing. And another word that I think she learned it from me, but she used to make fun of me saying this, and I will always think of her when I say this word. The word is basically. I don't know why, I must have said it a lot. Basically. So she thought it was really funny. She used to make fun of me. But she used to read books this thick on the set. When, I think after the episode where we got in trouble for laughing so much, her mom probably yelled at her or something, and then she came to the set with a book this thick. She read A Confederacy of Dunces. I remember her reading, and I think that was for pleasure, not for school. She was a very curious and self-taught and natural actress, and I respected her like a sister. I'll tell you what, I am amazed that 25 years later it has this ongoing cult following. I'm actually grateful for that. I never expected in my life that I would continue to be asked questions about it this many years later.